What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Make It or Break It Monday, the show that helps you get your head right so you can start your week right. Yes, that is my Christmas tree behind me. And yes, it is before Thanksgiving. While we will save the Sutter family traditions for a separate video, this week we're going to be talking about the second step regarding leadership. And if you remember last week, I talked to you guys about John Maxwell and how everything rises and falls on leadership. And last week we talked about one of the 4 things to be intentional in. And if you remember, the first thing to be intentional in is your personal growth and development. Very important, the foundation of everything else that we're going to talk about over these next couple of videos. So if you haven't checked it out, go back, watch the other video. But this week, number 2 thing to be intentional in is your priorities. Now, we all have different priorities. We put different values on things. Even when I helped teach training, we talked about the opportunity cost of somebody's time, meaning how do you actually weigh what's more important than the next? And one way to do that and to talk about how you're actually making choices is about what you actually give up. So if I choose to do one thing, I give up the opportunity to do everything else. Another way to think about it is everything you say yes to, you say no to everything else. So if I decide to go play golf instead of mow the lawn, or I decide to go hang out with my friends instead of spend time with my wife, usually not the best decision in the world, but everything you decide to do, you give up the opportunity to do anything else. So priorities is everything that we live and die by, right? You make decisions, and what you decide to do dictates how your future actually unfolds. So I want to give you 5 things today that will actually help you prioritize to get a high return. So this is actually called the rule of 5. So if that helps you remember it, number 1 is you have to know what you want. Seems basic, but you won't believe how many times we think we know what we want, but it's not actually what we need in the moment. So a good example is, I need to get a sale today, but what you don't need is actually a sale today. Yes, that is the result, but what you really need is someone to answer the phone, someone to actually speak to, someone to identify needs for, and actually get to the point where you can actually put yourself in a position to make a sale. So even though we keep thinking about the end result, and that's what we need, but you may actually need to pull it back and say, what do I actually need right now? Because the thing that you need right now and the step prior, steps plural, prior to the result is actually what you can do right now to actually work towards the result itself. So number 1, you have to know what you want. Number 2, you have to have the right tools. So even if I knew when to call somebody, when I actually got them on the phone, what am I actually going to say? How am I going to say it? How's it going to come out of me? Am I going to be able to ask the right types of questions to actually build value in my product and get someone to purchase from me? So you may get to the point to knowing what you want, but you also need the tools to do it. So when you start to break these down, each of these 5 are going to start to layer on themselves. So number 3 is you have to stay focused. So it's one thing to, yeah, you know what you want, but how often do our priorities change? Like, you know what? I made 3 calls. No one's answering today. I'm going to go do something different. I'm going to focus on another vertical. I'm going to focus on a different part of my customer base. I'm going to go do different things instead of sticking to the plan of what you actually can get the best results from. Because remember, everything you say yes to, you say no to everything else. So if you decide to do one thing over another, even though that is the best time to speak to that type of customer, you give up the opportunity, and it's the best time for you to win. And you're already changing your focus. So you have to stay focused and stay in the moment. And not only that, number 4, you have to be consistent. You have to be able to be consistent over that period of time. Not in just what you're deciding to do on a daily basis, but also you have to be consistent in what comes out of you. So if I'm trying to make a sale, I need to be able to be agile as I'm going through the conversation. I need to be flexible, but I also need to be prepared for different things that are going to come up in the conversation. Why I'm going to get told no today, what are the most common objections I'm going to hear, How am I not just talking about features and yeah, the benefits of my company or my product, but what are the true advantages that separate me from the rest of the competition that makes somebody want to actually do business with me? We always talk about features and benefits, but we always leave out advantages. And advantages are probably the most important thing because the advantage is just that. It's the advantage that separates you from every single other company or salesperson out there. Okay, so that's the first 4. And number 5 is you have to stay with it until you're finished. Gotta close the game out, right? There's 2 minutes left on the clock, you're up by 3, playing basketball. What happens if you let the last 2 minutes go? You probably lose, right? So you have to finish it all the way through. You have to see the conversation all the way through. You have to see your prioritization all the way through. You have to see how you're setting your day up all the way through. You have to get to the point where you yourself are running your day, you're doing it consistently, and you're finishing. So if I'm gonna make 40, 50, 60 calls today, it doesn't mean a lot if I make 60 today and 8 tomorrow, and 8 the next day, and 9 the next day, right? I have to be able to do whatever I'm set out to do. If I back into my numbers, I back into my goals, there's so much activity and so much effectiveness that's gonna end up causing my results. And if I don't do what I'm supposed to do until I'm finished every single day, whether that's 10 emails a day, 40 calls a day, whatever it is, if I keep not getting to the finish line, I'm gonna keep falling short. So that's the rule of 5 that I have for you guys. You have to know what you want, you have to have the right tools, you have to stay focused as you go through it, you have to be consistent throughout that process, and you have to stay with it until you're finished. So number 2 thing to be intentional, besides focusing on your personal growth and development, is focusing on your priorities so that your priorities get a high return. So hopefully this video helped you guys out. Hope you're doing well, and I'll talk to you next week.